Thank you, and thank you for having me and allowing me to come and speak to you today. I'm excited to really see what ONASHE is doing and what you guys are doing as students and how this has grown. I think maybe the second conference was allowed to do a presentation and got to sit in on some of the presentations in previous years as well. So to see this ONASHE continue to grow and your student organizations continue to be involved is very exciting, and to know that how seriously you take education and that you will foster that relationship for future generations as well. I know you guys we were running a little bit behind today and getting a little tired, but just wanted to come and speak to you a little bit about my experiences. I don't claim to be an expert on anything. I just can tell you about my life story and hope to share some of my life story with some of you, because some of you may have experienced similar things or know of someone going through similar things, and it kind of reflects on what Mr. Romanos was talking about, that we are not in this life alone, that there are people out there that can help us. So I want to thank my sister Claudia Littleaxe for allowing me to laugh a little bit earlier, because some of my story is a little bit hard to say, may make some of you sad, make some of you mad, but it may enlighten some of you. And I was thinking about my speech and what I would say to you students, and what it really came down to, the theme in my head I came up was how not to act. For me, it started really early on, and when I say how not to act, I was molested when I was 8 years old. And at that time, in my 8-year-old mind, I didn't want anybody to know that. I didn't even want my parents or family. And my mother, who I'm very close to, was very protective and talked to me about these things, and did everything she could to protect me and to make sure I knew that I could talk to her and feel safe. But I knew she knew that because she learned that somewhere. And at 8 years old, I remember going through her stuff. She had just came home from a conference. And so I went through her stuff and looked for those signs, those things that if a child was molested, what do you look for? And I remember reading that and remember thinking, I'm not going to act that way because I don't want her to know. And that's why I themed this how not to act, because at that time I was trying to teach myself, I'm not going to be afraid of this person. I'm not going to act like I don't want to be around this person, so that no one would know what had happened to me. And I lived with that for another 10 years. I was 18 before I finally disclosed to my mom and had let my family know what had happened to me. Life went on, because those things, when you don't address them, will come out in different ways. And whatever that was, at 15 years old, I met the man who I thought was going to be the man of my dreams. I was going to marry him, and we were going to live the rest of our lives together. And in my 15-year-old mind, this was the man I was going to marry, so it wasn't going to matter that if I chose to sleep with him now, because we're going to get married someday. Well, I ended up pregnant at 15. I had my first daughter. I was 16. I turned 16 when I gave birth to my first daughter, Tava, who's now 18. She will graduate this year, so I'm excited for her. But she was born with Down syndrome. So not only being a teen mom, but being a teen mom to a special needs child. At my sophomore year in high school, we spent Thanksgiving break in the hospital. She was 8 months old. She had open heart surgery. And my whole life really was dependent on, her life was dependent on me, the decisions I had to make. I was very grateful to have friends, have colleagues. I was part of a youth organization called All Nations Indian Youth, and I had some really great girlfriends and student advisors. I belonged to another Indian organization that kicked me out because I was pregnant. They didn't want that. I couldn't be, in their mind, I couldn't be a role model. I couldn't lead because I was a teen mom. And I accepted that, because I could understand where they were coming from as well. The other organization, All Nations, they said, you know what, you're here, you're with us, and we're going to help you through this. And one good girlfriend said to me, she said, Cherrah, just don't be another statistic, because statistics show you won't graduate high school, you'll have another baby before you do, and you won't go to college. And that stuck with me. And in my mind, I knew I had to do whatever I had to do to get through school so I wouldn't be another statistic. But then other things happened, because this man that I thought was my everything, after our daughter was born, after her open heart surgery, is when things start to really change. He started drinking, doing drugs, and in my little mind, I thought I can change this man. I'm going to make him better. So one day I went to his house and he pushed me, and I fell into a basket of hangers. And this is, again, how not to act. Because at that moment, I should have left that relationship. I should have walked away and realized I deserved more than that. But I didn't. I listened to his lies. I convinced myself, it was just an accident. He didn't mean it, and he's going to be better, and he's going to love me. and I'm gonna do, show him how much I can love him. Was in that relationship, managed to get into, got into school, went to the Tulsa Community College, struggled through there, and went to one of the best high schools in Tulsa, graduated from Booker T. Washington, but I didn't have a college plan. I was working at our casino, or bingo at the time, but I knew I needed to get to school. And I just walked in one day at Tulsa Community College and said, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, I just know I need to go to school. And like Mr. Romano said, they didn't tell you it's gonna take over 4 years to actually graduate, and they handed me a 12-hour course schedule, and I signed up, and thankfully my dad had a little bit of money saved, because I was like, I need $800, it's Friday, and so I can start school on Monday. Thankfully he made it happen, and I had advisors at Tulsa Community College that did the paperwork and helped me get the Pell Grants and other assistance. So I started my college career there. Thankfully they had fast track courses and weekend courses, so I wanted to get caught up, because I was already what I would consider a semester behind if I would have started right after high school. So I did all of those courses, graduated, moved forward, got accepted to the University of Oklahoma. I still didn't know you had to apply to the School of Social Work. I still was learning. So I get to OU, and then I was like, oh, now I have to apply there to actually get into the course field that I'm wanting to study. But thankfully, I had advisors and people there that could help me do that paperwork. Meanwhile, my home life was still falling apart. I wind up pregnant again. So I'm pregnant at my first year at OU with my second daughter. And this man, I'm still convinced, okay, he's gonna love me because I'm gonna graduate, and I'm gonna show him how much I can, take over the world, and I can take care of things and do all of these things. Things didn't work out, but for that first semester, thankfully I was determined, and something inside of me enough was trying to take all that ugliness I was facing at home and make it something positive. So I was more determined that I have to finish school. I didn't make the best grades, but I did manage to have A's and B's and few C's. But had my two daughters, and thinking I'm gonna graduate and I'm gonna move away so I can get away from this man in this abusive relationship. Again, how not to act. When I should have been running, I should have been trying to get away from the situation, I ended up pregnant with my third child, my son Russell. So by this point, I'm graduating. I have my bachelor's degrees now. I have 2 children and 1 on the way, and I moved back home to Tulsa. I move in with the kid's father, and got convinced again, okay, well, I'm getting ready to graduate. I'm gonna be out of here. Well, he shows me, he cleans up long enough for me to believe, okay, he's clean, he's sober, he's not gonna be abusive, he's not gonna hit me, he's not gonna say bad things to me anymore. He's in counseling, he's showing me all these things. Well, that lasted not very short after convincing me to, let's get married. Okay, so we get married. He's still clean and sober for a little while, then slowly things start to revert back to the way they were before. So life moves on. I'm still trying to do all these things, raise my children. I'm married to this man now. I run for tribal council. I get elected. I was 24 years old, bought my first house. I was thinking life is grand. I have a college degree. We're doing all these things. Managed to even get my master's, and we have our 4th child. And life still wasn't great. And I was, to me, internalizing all those things that were happening to me at home to try to make something good. Because I was a very public life, being a tribal leader, and a very private life at home, because those two never mixed in my world. And it was very hard to do. So I didn't have a lot of friends. I didn't have a lot of people I let in by my own choice, because I didn't want them to know what I was dealing with at home. October 2008, on tribal council, 4 kids, master's degree, doing all these things I think is great. Why doesn't this man love me any more than he does? Why can't he see how great I am and that I'm trying to provide for him? And at this point, he's a stay-at-home dad, and I'm the breadwinner. So our roles were reversed. And I give him a lot of credit for doing that, but again, not realizing I wasn't taking ownership of my own life. Again, how not to act. October 8th, October 2008, I had a council meeting that morning, and he comes home 5 o'clock in the morning drunk. And even in all the past fights we had, I never really thought this man could kill me. And for the first time, he we got into an argument because I needed to get ready for the council meeting. He needed to watch the kids, and he starts to choke me. And that was the first time I started to scream, and thankfully my youngest son woke up and turned a hall light on, and my now ex-husband had essentially just blacked out and then passed out. But that's the first time I ever got scared in that 16-year relationship to think he could kill me. He wouldn't even know because he's passed out, and my kids would think I'm asleep or wouldn't know exactly what was going on. And even then, again, how not to act. I didn't run immediately. I didn't leave immediately. I went to my council meeting. I felt like I still had some responsibility to the nation that I needed to attend the tribal council meeting. And so I sat like this most of the meeting. I'm usually pretty vocal. I just voted. But you could see the fingerprint marks on my neck. And at this point, I had some really good girlfriends and some people I had let into my life a little bit more. And even though they didn't know all that was going on, I had finally told them what was going on. And they gathered around me and was like, we'll get you out. We'll take care of whatever you need to do. We'll help you. And again, I didn't leave immediately. I let this man again convince me he's going to get help. We're going to get better. We're going to start marriage counseling. We're going to do all these things. And some of you that know me know I lived a very public life. So it was hard for some people to see that or hear that, to know here I am out in the community, involved with all these organizations, taking my kids places, and yet I have to go home to that quite often. And that's why I tell this speech how not to act, because some of you may have gone through these things, or you know somebody going through these things. And I wear this orange button for February is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, and some of you are teens, not quite so teens, but the violence that happens in Indian country, it happens more often, we know that, in Indian country than it does anywhere else. And how do we take those things and make our women stronger, make our community stronger, make our men stronger? Thankfully, don't want to cry, but I'm very fortunate. I got out of that relationship, and that was the first thing I did, was go to our tribal program, our family violence prevention program. And it was pretty hard to walk in there, and they knew me as tribal councilwoman Cherrah, and they think I'm there to talk about business, and I had to walk in and say, I need help. I need to figure out how to get out of this relationship and how to be able to tell my story. And I started telling my story in '09. Before that, no one else knew what was going on, not even my parents. So it's a healing process for me, and at the same time, if there's one person that can help, that needs help, and the more often I talk, the more stories I hear, that it doesn't have to happen. And we know it happens on our college campuses. We know it happens in our dorms. We know it happens in our communities. But we have programs that you are not alone, that there is help available to you. And not only just in that situation, but with everything in life. And I tell you my story to say, even with all those struggles, I managed to get my degree. I managed to go to school. I managed to raise my children. But I needed help along the way, and I needed other people to help me get through to where I needed to be. Thankfully, again, for my program at Muscogee Creek Nation, I was able to get some help and able to start working on my life and myself and saying, okay, now this is how I should be acting. This is how I need to be. That I'm not going to let all these things that have happened to me in my life, that's not going to dictate who I am. It's a part of me. It's a scar that I carry, but it's not going to dictate who I am. I'm going to be better for this. And I'm going to have to help as many people as I can along the way. Again, some of you that know me, I've been heavily involved and encourage you all to be involved as well. The Violence Against Women Act. Right now, the Congress is, the House of Representatives may be voting on it next week. And there's a part that they're taking out. The part that was proposed on Friday was taking out some of the tribal provisions for Native women. Because right now, a non-Native man can come on tribal property and assault and abuse a Native woman, and nobody has jurisdiction over him. And that's a problem. So I encourage you as students at voting age to encourage you to vote, to get involved in your government, get involved in your tribal government, your federal government, your state, your local communities, even your student organizations. You can start there. But to really look at these issues that are affecting your community, because you guys can make that change. I know at our tribal college, our College of Muscogee Nation, when we first started that, some of our students were having trouble paying for school. And they came to me as a tribal council member and said, hey, how can you help us? And we gave that ownership back to that student organization, said, do a resolution for us. Tell us what you need, and then we will take it to the tribal council and say, this is what our students are demanding. And you can do that as students and as individuals to start trying to make that change in your communities. That you have the power to do that. And you're here, you've learned a lot of skills, you've heard a lot of speakers this last 2 days. Take some of those things back and take it back to some of those students that couldn't come here or wouldn't come here. And reach out to those students, because there's somebody out there that could benefit from what you're doing and learn from your story. So share those stories with one another. Like I said, it just really hit. I was glad I was here to hear Mr. Romanos, because it really hit on what I was wanting for you guys to hear as well, that you guys have the power and you are at a great time in your lives as students to make changes, be effective changes, not only in your college, but out in the world. I keep looking this way because I see Jordan Harmon from OSU, and she was one of our princesses for Tulsa Indian Club, but to see what she's gone out and do and has gone out and done, and one of our college students from Muscogee Nation, Rachel Sourjohn, she is at Washington, D.C. right now, and it's great to, again, to build those networks, and that was what ONASHE was set up to do, to help keep you guys going to school, to support one another, to be leaders to each other and others in your colleges, and then to be leaders out in the world and creating that network, because your network's going to be so valuable. And anything I can do for you, if there's anything, please feel free to contact me. I'm on Facebook, probably too much, but those networks you guys make here at the level that you're at, because you'll work with us. In Indian communities, we don't go very far. A lot of us don't leave our communities and our homes very far, so there may be a resource out there that we can share, and I can say, oh, Jennifer's a great researcher, I know that I can give her a call. You know, Jordan's great and at English and band and all these things I know about certain people. I call on these people now, and these are my colleagues and friends, and they may have been students or one time or teachers one time, but at one point we will all just be community members, and we're all members of Indian country. How can we help each other, and how can we make our community stronger and better? So just encourage you that, and if anything, just please share your stories. Don't let anything hold you back. Don't let anything, how not to act. You know, when there's something that you're facing, know that you're not facing anything in the world alone, that there is somebody out there that can help you. So I encourage you all to keep going forward with your education, make a difference in your communities, make a difference in your environment, again, and reach out to one another. If there's something, you have an idea, call on a few friends, and you will see, we see this I Don't Know More movement taking over Indian country. How does that look in our tribal colleges? How does that look in your communities at home? You guys have all the power in the world, and I wish you all well, and just wanted to thank you for allowing me to come and speak and share my story with you. Mado.
Thank you.